Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games. Book 1, The Hunger Games. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. In these chapters, we pretty much read right up to the point that Rashawn stopped watching the movie.
We do!
Works out pretty solidly for our first episode. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn. It is so funny because I was thinking that as I was reading it. I was like, this is exactly where I left off.
Yeah. So give me your first impressions.
Well,
Bold
right.
statements.
So my first initial reactions, kids, if you listen to our little teaser that we did, you got an idea of what I remembered from the movies. And I have to say, these first few chapters are a lot darker than I remember feeling watching the movies. And granted, I was watching sort of half-assed. It was a long time ago, so I'm not saying that my take on the movies is like the end-all be-all. But just these first few chapters, it was a lot darker. It was a lot like sort of claustrophobic and like the desperation that these characters are feeling and the how they are living.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like much more bleak than I was prepared for it to be, especially at the very beginning. This is no good. This world that they're living in. And also, I didn't get this from the little bit of the movie that I watched. That this world is not some fantastical world that doesn't exist or is completely made up. This is happening in in North America with very specific references to regions that exist within the United States. And this is a sort of post the failing of our entire democracy. And this is what is left. And I was just like, oh, word, is that what we're doing here?
That is indeed what we are doing here.
Yeah, it was wild. I didn't know that's what was happening. So I'm into it.
Yeah, when you were talking about like, oh, I wonder about like if it's about a sacrifice to gods or demons the way it is in the Ray Bearer books, and I was like, oh wow, she really doesn't know anything. Because there's no necessity for the Hunger Games. They decided to make this a thing. This
is so incredibly sinister, and the way that it's written from Katniss's point of view, I love how not here for any of this bullshit she is. Like, she's just, like, ready to burn all this shit down. Like, she just already, at the very beginning, sees this is all bullshit. But this whole, like, Hunger Games is, on its face, it's not even being subtle. On its face, it is, like, a reminder of our power we have over you. And also, you are being punished in perpetuity for the crimes of a generation or two before you who had the audacity to rebel.
Yep.
Y'all, this is wild, wild stuff. I had no idea.
And something that I really like about the way this is written is that Katniss is not like, I need to know the truth about how this country was found or like what happened, or no, she straight up is like, I don't see the point in looking for that. I'm hungry now. I need to feed my family and keep us alive. And finding out the truth does not put food on the fucking table.
Yep.
So somebody else can obsess over that shit. I'm not interested.
I love it because that is so fucking real. Like, you know, the way that we are kept grinding and scrambling for day-to-day survival keeps us from being able to engage in these larger conversations and these larger quests for truth, because ain't nobody got time for that.
Yep.
I'm hungry now. I got a family to feed now. My dad got blown up in the mine last week. What are we doing? Like,
yeah,
it just is not. It's so, I know it's only the first 2 chapters, but it is just so much more. It's just so different than what I thought I was about to do.
So all right, let's start this off from the beginning. We have her waking up looking for Prim next to her, who is not there. Prim is her little sister, and she's realizing that probably Prim had nightmares because it's reaping day, and she likely went to sleep in the same bed as her mom. And she gets up, and I love this description of this cat. So there's this cat named Buttercup, and it's a small thing. Yeah, this cat is ugly. Mashed in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. Prim named him Buttercup, insisting that his muddy yellow coat matched the bright flower. He hates me, or at least distrusts me. Even though it was years ago, I think he still remembers how I tried to drown him in a bucket when Prim brought him home.
This is so dark.
Now, I love this because it is such an unwritten rule that to make your character relatable, they are good with animals and love pets and the whole thing. And there is something about coming out of the gate and being like, she tried to drown this cat one time.
It is a whole barely 4 paragraphs into the first chapter of the first fucking book. And our protagonist, our heroine, is trying to drown a cat.
Yep. Yep. And it's for very practical reasons. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, I hate cats. It's, I was going to have to feed and care for this cat, and we can't feed ourselves. Yeah. Are you kidding me? No, we are not doing this.
The last thing I needed was another mouth to feed. Mm-hmm. And we find out a little bit later, because when the book opens, we don't get like a full understanding of like time and age. So we don't really know exactly how old she is when this is happening. Mm-hmm. We find out later that, her father dies when I think she's 11.
Yeah.
So this is going to be like after that. So she's still quite young, and she is being faced with the reality of, as a child, this is another mouth I have to feed. Mm-hmm. So she is making very grown-up adult decisions as a baby.
Exactly. And the reason for that, we get into a little bit later, but I'll bring it up now, is that her mother basically went into like a complete breakdown when her father died.
Yeah.
And was letting her children starve to death and was not doing anything to care for them.
Completely checked out.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to be, insensitive. That is a legitimate response to that type of trauma, especially when you get into the details about how the father died and this explosion. And she says at one point there was literally nothing left to bury.
Yeah.
Like, wow. But she left 2 young children to fend for themselves. And it has created this hardness in Katniss. Mm-hmm. This sort of, I don't get to grieve and be sad and catatonic because that someone else is already doing that. Mm-hmm. So I have to then step up and be the adult. And if you guys have been listening to us for any period of time across multiple properties, I'm always going to feel a way when this type of thing comes up in fiction, because it touches me in a very real way. That's sort of like being forced to grow up early. Mm-hmm. And here we are again.
Yeah. So she gets up, and she's the first one up here. Prim has left her some goat cheese that she packs up along with some things to go hunting. And we get a little bit of a description of the seam, which is the part of District 12 that she lives in. specifically. There are different areas depending on what you do for a living.
Right.
So, people who are merchants and whatnot, they have a whole different section of the town. And the Seam is the most impoverished.
Right.
It's the worst place to be.
I like too this idea, and I knew from the little bit of the movie that I had seen that there are like these various districts that exist in this world, and that all these kids come from them. But what I didn't really get a chance to appreciate or remember was that within the district there is still a class system.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So you can be in a district and you can be dirt poor and impoverished and starving. You can be in the same district but be a little bit of a higher class, because it turns out you can be a merchant.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a politician. There's a mayor whose family is relatively well off,
Yeah.
And I had kind of missed that from the little bit of time I spent watching the movie. And that, for me, really fleshes this out, because it's one thing to think that like everybody in your district is on the very, very same stratus, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because then it comes up a little bit later in these first few chapters about how it's important to have the different classes, because then you have people who are invested in maintaining their position.
Yes.
And how important that function is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really cool to find out that, they're going to talk about that here too.
And that's something that I don't think the movie gets into as much as it should. There is that her and Peta did not grow up in the same situation, but it doesn't feel like it is emphasized in the way that, this is the pitting people who are all struggling to survive against one another is a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have to kind of gloss over a lot for the movie. And these details matter to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. Our part of District 12, nicknamed the Seam, is usually crawling with coal miners heading out to the morning shift at this hour. Men and women with hunched shoulders, swollen knuckles. Many who have long since stopped trying to scrub the coal dust out of their broken nails, the lines of their sunken faces. But today, the black cinder streets are empty. Shutters on the squat gray houses are closed. The reaping isn't until 2. May as well sleep in if you can. Our house is almost at the edge of the Seam. I only have to pass a few gates to reach the scruffy field called the meadow. Separating the meadow from the woods, in fact, enclosing all of District 12, is a high chain-link fence topped with barbed wire loops. In theory, it's supposed to be electrified 24 hours a day as a deterrent to the predators that live in the woods. But since we're lucky to get 2 or 3 hours of electricity in the evenings, it's usually safe to touch. Even so, I always take a moment to listen carefully for the hum that means the fence is live. Right now, it's as silent as stone. So this is how she sneaks out to go hunting with her friend Gail.
Yeah, this is also really interesting to me because she's describing this giant fence that's, supposed to be keeping predators out. And it absolutely feels like it's much more about keeping them in, right?
Yes, definitely.
And that what she does every day, this going out and hunting, is super illegal. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like punishable by death.
It's punishable by potentially like a beating. Her father distributing weapons would have been punishable by death, is what she mentions later. Well, even if they're just for hunting, it could be construed as an uprising.
And she has like these weapons from her father that she hides out there that she has to be really careful, not to get caught with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I know this is an extreme because this is a book and you have to make things extreme, but the idea that you can criminalize things people do to take care of themselves, that they're forced to do to take care of themselves because the system, the state, whatever you want to call it, is not meeting those needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's so real.
Yes, it sure is. So it's pretty much only her and Gail that risk going out as far as they do. Like some folks will go and try and get apples and stuff from the trees, but they always stay within sight of everything. And if there's any sign shit's going left, they come running right back. And it's, just sort of like putting a toe out and then just sprinting backward.
Mm-hmm.
But her and him are a lot more comfortable with the woods in a way that it's like better for them to be out there than it is in the town.
And we learned, at least for Katniss, that she gets a lot of this instruction from her father before he dies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we get so much background on Gale and how.
No.
I mean, we find out a little bit later that he's also responsible for taking care of like some siblings.
Yeah, he's got like 5 brothers and
Right.
sisters.
But we know that Katniss is able to do this and is comfortable because her father has taught her
Mm-hmm.
and has spent time teaching her how to do this, which makes his absence, the father's absence, really profound because so early in the book, it's so clear how important he was to her. And I feel like it becomes very clear that they had a very special relationship. Not that he wouldn't have had it with Prim as well, but Prim was so young.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he had really, really fostered this close relationship with Katniss where they had this thing that they did that was like their thing.
Yeah.
Which makes him dying even sadder because you realize, oh, what just a huge void.
Yeah.
That must have left for her.
Definitely.
And she even says something, there's a line about, it had been 5 years later and I still wake up screaming for him to run,
Mm-hmm.
which
mm-hmm.
is like just sort of the trauma of losing her father in that way and how it still continues to impact her.
Yeah. And there's a really strong sense that Prim relates more to her mother.
Mm-hmm.
She describes later about how she had tried to teach Prim to hunt and Prim could not handle hurting animals and would do like there may still be time to heal it if we get it home in time kind of thing. And her mother is a healer. She does apothecary stuff. So her sister's kind of taking the same role.
Isn't there also a mention of how Prim and the mother like look a little bit different than everyone else does in the scene?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the mother is actually from a little bit of a higher class and just sort of fell in love with the father.
Yeah.
But that Prim takes after her mother's sort of fine, fairer features, and Katniss and the other people of the scene have this sort of, I think she calls it like this gray look
Mm-hmm.
to them.
She's described as having olive skin at one point.
Yes.
And it's an interesting thing because, like, you know how vague that can feel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have had conversations about what that really means for her. The representation of her in the movie is a white woman.
Yep.
And a lot of people were just kind of like, come on, man, really? And I had found out, a lot of people. My issue at the time was simply how glowingly healthful Jennifer Garner, or what is Jennifer Lawrence, thank you. She just always looked like she was in the absolute peak of health.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody who is supposed to be like in the middle of perhaps starving to death, it was just bothered me that she seemed like she was ready to join the Olympics anyway, like she was already in training. But there are a lot of folks who have interpreted Katniss's description as being native.
Mm.
And I had actually interpreted as potentially maybe being Romani.
Mm.
So I don't know if Suzanne Collins has actually come out and said anything specifically about it, because she doesn't do a lot of interviews and stuff.
I will tell you, I had to get this from Kindle Unlimited because the book you ordered didn't come, right? Of
course it didn't.
So the version that I bought, I'm going to just scroll back to the beginning, is like a special edition that has like an extended interview with the author, which I obviously, I didn't read because, you never
probably
know
got spoilers. Yeah.
But I don't know if this is something I could send to you, but it's supposedly her addressing all kinds of things and questions and shit that's come up over the years.
Cool.
So I don't know if that's something you'd be interested in or not. But.
Well, I'm reading it off Kindle Unlimited also, so.
Oh, well, then you should have the same one. Mine is
I just have been listening to it on audiobook, so I only just bought it.
Yeah,
but
like special edition Susan Collins is what mine says.
Cool. But yeah, so anyway, it's really like Katniss feels like she is almost a different race than her mother and sister.
Mm-hmm. She definitely feels like she's a different being.
Yes. So her and Gale have a little bit of a joking back and forth about Happy Reaping Day. May the odds be ever in your favor.
This is so fun.
And she's just like, well, we gotta laugh about it because, like, literally, what else are you gonna do?
I love there's a line that says something like, the accent of the capital is so ridiculous that anything you say in it sounds ludicrous. And I was just like, I feel that. And the fact that this day, this reaping day, that the capital, and I'm assuming capital is just sort of like a catch-all phrase for like the government and who's in charge and all that jazz, right?
Yes.
They are insisting that the populace, that the citizens pretend this is like a great holiday.
Yeah.
What a fucking mind fuck. Like, everybody is supposed to pretend like this is a great day when really this is a horrific day where everybody is praying their child doesn't get called.
Yes.
And that it's called the reaping. Like, come on.
Are we the baddies?
Yes. Yes, you are.
So they have a moment where they're just eating and talking. And then he says, we could do it, And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we could leave the district. We could survive out there in the woods.
She gets so mad.
Yeah. What's interesting. It's all about the practicality of it. What's the point of talking about this? He's like, well, if I didn't live here, you do.
Yep.
So what the fuck is the point of us even having this conversation?
There's no room for this sort of like fantastical wishing, in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. It is meaningless. It's pointless. It accomplishes nothing. And it's just a waste of time. We don't get to have imagination and fantasize. Which again, too real.
Yep. This is again another thing that I really like because there are just so many tropes with YA stuff when somebody is growing up in a bad situation, but they still have this starry-eyed and you buy it because it feels like relatable to you reading it as, well, yeah, you would think something better would be out there. But if you think about what it would be like to literally live in this with no end in sight, that's not the kind of attitude you're going to have about it. And I just really appreciate the relentlessness of Katniss's disinterest with this whole line of thinking. It's just really, I can't even believe you would start this. Now I'm in a bad fucking mood and this is already a bad day. Can we just get the show on the road here and get home?
There's a moment where she's talking about, again, her parents and how her and her sister favor each parent. And she's remembering about and telling us as readers about how her father met her mother at the apothecary and da-da-da-da-da. And there's a line where she says, I tried to forgive my mom for my father's sake. But to be honest, I'm not the forgiving type. Again, you guys, chapter 1. This is the heroine. I'm supposed to be rooting for her, right? And they are giving me someone who is not begging me to root for them.
Yes, very, very much so.
And I am kind of here for it.
So they hunt they do pretty well. They get a dozen fish, a bag of greens, and best of all, a gallon of strawberries.
And Gail showed up with bread, so
True,
let's not like poo poo that.
and her sister had given her goat cheese. So starting off the day with goat cheese and bread, pretty solid.
Yep, and it's some berries. They're like, it's not too shabby.
So they go to the Hob, and this is the place where they do their black market dealings. And
I love this.
We get some info about how, technically, yes, what they do is illegal, but the people who are peacekeepers, they have the money to pay for better, and they are willing to turn a blind eye so that they don't have to only live off of what District 12 gets given.
This is something you will see, across genres and even in real life situations when this sort of thing happens. There was I'm not going to take too much time to sidetrack us, but there was a period of time where I was reading a lot of Russian literature and
happy time in your life?
There's never been a happy time in my life.
Oh.
But and also other writers from that block in history, where Russia was just taking over all of Eastern Europe. And one of the things that would always come up was, even under the USSR's version of communism, right? There was always people in positions of power who would, on the surface, be like, yeah, I'm a communist and I'm a Soviet and I support the government. But then on the side, they went to finer things too. And you just slip them a little extra something, and then you get the things that most people can't get, because no matter what we do, as far as political systems, human beings are just going to keep being out here being human beings. And we're going to want the nicer things. We're going to want the shit that everybody else can't get.
Yeah. Humans gonna being.
I mean, we just do what we do, and it's terrible. We should stop.
Well, I feel like we don't need to read the Hunger Games now, guys. So the Hob, there's this woman called Greasy Say, who they are very much it's for the best if you just stay on her good side.
This is like a bowl of brown in Song of Ice and Fire.
That was exactly what I was thinking as well. She's the only one who can consistently be counted on to buy wild dog. We don't hunt them on purpose, but if you're attacked and you take down a dog or two, meat is meat. Once it's in the soup, I'll call it beef, Greasy says with a wink. No one in the scene would turn up their nose at a good leg of wild dog, but the peacekeepers who come to the Hob can afford to be a little choosier. So then they go to the mayor's house, and he has a daughter named Madge, who actually, flying in the face of every trope that I was prepared for the first time I read this, is not the worst.
So the door is supposed to open. I'm expecting this snotty little fucking classless cunt to open the door and talk down to them, and that doesn't happen at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, in fact, Katniss feels like she relates to Madge better than most of her other classmates. And when Gale gives her a hard time, she gets kind of mad.
I love that Katniss is like, me and Madge, we end up together at school all the time because we're both such weirdos. We end up being partners. We hardly ever talk, but neither of us minds that.
I just really love that energy of finding somebody who the pathway to becoming friends is simply, we're not friends.
Yep.
We're just around each other in a way that's mostly pleasant for us both. And yeah, Gale's because everybody's meant to dress up for Reaping Day. So she's in this, cute dress, and Gale says pretty dress, which, it's understandably kind of unclear whether he's fucking with her or not.
Right.
And so in return, she sort of fucks with him and says like, well, if I wind up going to the Capitol, I want to look nice, don't I?
And that does not go over well with Gail.
It does not.
And we find out this like, so it's so early in the story, y'all. Mm-hmm. This is so early. And things just got so much worse because we find out through this sort of long, convoluted way that the reason this is so upsetting for Gail, Madge sort of saying I could end up being called to the Capitol as well, is that this whole idea of odds being in your favor has like multiple meanings, way more than I realized. And it turns out there is this sort of I don't know what to call it. There's a loophole, a procedure. I'm not sure what, but they have this
a social program,
right? It's like welfare on like, but like not. It's like welfare if this country could get away with doing what it wanted to really 100%. Do with welfare. Like there's just a very thin line keeping this from being what we all deal with. Like a very, very thin line. It's like evaporating daily. So they have this thing. It's called, is it the Tesserae?
Yes, that's how you say it. Yep.
Where they're basically like, hey, poor people, I know it sucks that you're poor. And I know you'd be really happy to do anything, you know, to alleviate the shit that comes with being impoverished and starving. So what you can do is you can put your name in the hat multiple times, and we will then gift you some substance, like something to keep you going through the year. A little bit of grain, a little bit of lard, and I don't know, sugar or flour or something. But it's not even just for the year because it's cumulative.
Yes.
Which is fucking insane.
Indeed.
So we have people, I think at the end of these first two chapters, we basically find out that Gale, his name is in that bowl like 42 fucking times. And Katniss's is in like 20 something times.
It's more than that. We'll get there. Here it is. Gale, who's 18 and has been helping or single-handedly feeding a family of 5 for 7 years, will have his name in 42 times. I had my name entered 4 times for Tesserae each year. So at the age of 16, my name will be in the reaping 20 times.
Yep. See? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. So yeah, that shit, like you said, it feels like 100% something that we would try and get away with.
It is ghoulish. It is like cartoon levels. Ugh. So when Madge makes this sort of like offhand comment about like, you know, I want to look good if I should go to the Capitol, with the understanding that she is not in the position where she would have ever needed to take advantage of this Tesserae, right? So she's not the same as them,
right?
She's not on the same level of them, and I don't personally believe this very early on in the story that she meant it in this way. I don't think Madge was like taking a shot.
Agree.
You know? But to be fair, from Gale's position and Katniss's low-key her position, they're just occupying a very different space. You know? And when you think about what that means, like this is a fishbowl of names, I'm guessing, that people are just plucking out.
Basically.
And, you know, it's the whole district, the children from like 12 to 18. So it's not everybody, but it's, you know, the children of a certain age group. So it's a fairly solid number, you know, figure like 1,000 names. And then your shit is in there 40 something fucking times. The fuck?
Yeah.
What? Oh my God.
And to his credit, Gale is like aware that he's being kind of unfair to Madge in that moment. Like his anger is not with her.
Yeah.
And she even says something about how On other days, I've listened to him rant about how the Tesserae are just another tool to cause misery, a way to plant hatred between starving workers of the seam and those who can generally count on supper, and thereby ensure we will never trust one another.
Yep.
So he knows better, but
in the
on
moment,
reaping day, like,
emotions
you know,
are running high.
Yep.
And our ability to be calm and rational, might not be at its best. And there's a line that says something like, you can see why someone like Madge, who's never had to be at risk of needing the Tessera, could trigger Gale. And I really appreciated that, because I was like, yes, I do see how that could happen.
Very much.
Her odds of being called, while it's true, she could be called. The odds of her being called are so much less than other people who are so much more disadvantaged, which is the fucking theme of the world that we live in right now.
It's true. Just be prepared for that sentence to be something that you say a lot.
You know what? You tried to warn me that the movies did not capture, and that when you reread these recently, you were like really, really mad and just like, fuck. And I just want to say I get it.
That whole, like what you said before about how like it's ghoulish, it feels almost cartoonish. I have felt that way about our actual system so frequently lately. Like, I can't believe XYZ is allowed. I can't believe we have all just decided that we're going to live with such and such. And so the things that feel absurd sometimes in the story, I have to stop and remind myself, we would do this though. Yeah, it's absurd. It's poorly thought out. It's short-sighted. It's monstrous. And we would fucking do it though.
If we thought for a second we could get away with it, we would absolutely do it.
Yep.
Absolutely. There is nothing about the way we operate morally that prohibits us from engaging in this type of behavior. The only thing that keeps us from doing it is that there is a sort of idea of like, that's too far. I don't think we could get away with it. But that shit is shortening every day. At every turn. The distance between can and should we do this and can we get away with it is becoming much more narrow every day.
So she goes home. Her mother has set out her old dress for Katniss to wear, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And Katniss is really struggling to like allow herself to accept these gestures from her mom, because she held so much anger toward her that she was not letting her do anything. And I really get that.
Yeah.
She has a moment with Prim because the back of her shirt is poking out of her skirt.
Yeah.
And so she tells her to like tuck her tail away, and Prim does a quack. Yeah.
And this is Prim's very first reaping, right? This is the first time she's old enough to be eligible for this.
Correct.
So this is this is already a big deal and a big day, but even more so because there's more at stake. Even though Kat doesn't really seem to be that concerned that her sister is in danger, she's so much more focused on how many times her name is in the bowl. So that when we get to that moment later on, she is completely blindsided. Like, she just really didn't think that that was going to be a thing.
Yes.
You know?
Yep. So they go out to the square, and there's a temporary stage set up. And there is a betting thing that goes on.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Odds are given on their ages, whether they're seam or merchant, if they'll break down and weep. Most refuse dealing with the racketeers, but carefully. Yeah. These same people tend to be informers, and who hasn't broken the law? I could be shot on a daily basis for hunting. Oh no, it is punishable by a death offense. But the appetites of those in charge protect me. Not everyone can claim the same.
Yeah. What's the name of this place that they live in? This country?
Panem.
Is that anything? Am I supposed to like look at that backwards, or is that? Am I supposed to like move those letters around and make a word?
It's a reference to Bread and Circuses.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
So I'm going to look this up so that I get the wording of this correct, because it's Panem et Circenses, I think. And here it is. Bread and Circuses is a metonymic phrase referring to superficial appeasement. It is attributed to Juvenal, I don't know how to say this, a Roman poet, used commonly in cultural, particularly political contexts. The phrase means to generate public approval not by excellence, but by diversion, distraction, or by satisfying the most immediate or base requirements of a populace.
Ooh, I love that.
By offering a palliative, for example, food or entertainment.
Right. So when the Hunger Games first came out, and long-time listeners might remember, I used to make jokes about this all the time. I haven't done it in years, but me and Steve used to have this thing where something would come out, and we'd be like, I liked it better the first time when it was called blah, blah, blah. We would do that all the time. So there was a, please forgive me, listeners, there's a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and is it called The Running Man? But basically the idea is that it is a, sort of like dystopian future. Things are terrible, and there is a annual game that occurs.
I feel like Running Man is correct, but
right.
I haven't seen it. I just know of it by reference.
And I haven't seen it in like 25 years, and I cannot tell you if it's a good movie. I can't even remember how it ends or anything. But the sort of premise is that in this world, people are sort of plucked, I think, to participate in these games.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the Hunger Games movies started coming out, and I was like, oh, huh.
Yep.
That sounds like that thing. But again, the comparison is very superficial. So like, don't feel like you need to add me and tell me all the reasons why it's different. But just the sort of idea of what you're to build on what you're talking about, which is this idea that in a society that is this fucking depraved, you would need to come up with some sort of spectacle,
mm-hmm.
As a palliative, something to distract the populace and to also give, because the thing too about the Hunger Games, right, that you find out at the end of the second or third chapter is that the person who wins, the one person who survives, gets like glory.
Yes.
And they're good, and their family is good.
Mm-hmm.
And good is relative because we meet this Hamish guy, and that motherfucker doesn't seem good.
Hamish is not doing all right.
He doesn't seem good at all.
This is your Woody Harrelson that you were like.
He was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
He was such a mess. But yeah, the idea that the one survivor then can lift the people that they love out of this terrible position they found themselves in, that made them vulnerable to this whole fucking show in the first place.
Yeah.
And that is what makes it aspirational, because it's an opportunity to save your loved ones from this bullshit.
Yep. Yeah. And just like dangling this over everybody. I mean, ew. It's just so ew. Mm-hmm. There's also the movie Battle Royale, and a lot of people compare the Hunger Games to Battle Royale. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I haven't.
It's a really different concept in reality. Like we have basically children fighting to the death, so on the surface it looks the same, but that is much more like just the themes around it are not about poverty. They're not about like the corruption of a democracy. They're not about the things that these books are about. It's a much more specific sort of societal thing. And I believe that movie is Japanese. I may be wrong about that. Don't at me, bro. But it's doing something really, really different despite the general like plot seeming really similar. So I always tend to push back when I hear people be like, well, they did it already with Battle Royale. They didn't, though. It's not at all the same situation.
Yeah. I just went to the Googles really quickly and for Running Man, and what I did not remember is that there was a specific year that this was set in.
Oh my God, what year was it?
2019.
Oh God.
In the year 2019, America is a
totalitarian
state where the favorite television program is The Running Man, a game show in which prisoners must run to freedom to avoid a brutal death. From 1987.
Man.
They thought 2019 was so far in the future.
I know, right? All right. So they are standing here. All the older kids are in the front. Younger kids are in the back. The mayor comes out and has to read the whole thing about the origin of the Hunger Games.
This is so terrible.
It's so tedious. It's like
doesn't seem like it doesn't say explicitly, but I really feel like this motherfucker is just droning on and does not even want to be here.
That's 100% the impression I also get. In punishment for the uprising, each of the 12 districts must provide one boy and one girl called tributes to participate. They will be imprisoned in a vast outdoor arena that could hold anything from a burning desert to a frozen wasteland. Over a period of several weeks, the competitors must fight to the death. The last tribute standing wins. And later we get some mentions of past games and the way that they went, because Gail is giving her advice on finding a bow or making a bow. And she's like, there was one where there was no trees. They couldn't even build fires, and they all slowly froze to death, which was bad television.
It was like that season was the worst. It almost got canceled. Nobody enjoyed that. It was not entertaining. I love too that when the mayor comes up to talk and he has to tell the history of Panem, it says that it was a country that rose up out of the ashes of a place that was once called North America. He listed disasters, the droughts, the storms, the fires, the encroaching seas that swallowed up so much of the land, the brutal war for what little sustenance remained. Y'all, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be concerned? We should be concerned, right?
I mean, that's always the answer to that is always yes, but yeah, it feels very pointed.
And then they have this fucking, after the rebellion, what they call this peace is the Treaty of Treason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has basically created the Hunger Games, to make sure that the rebellion never happens again. The Treaty of Treason? No.
Doesn't feel very treaty.
Who is signing off on that? That is terrible.
To make it humiliating as well as torturous, they require us to treat it as a festivity. The last tribute alive receives a life of ease back home. Their district will be showered with prizes, largely consisting of food.
What does that line that Katniss has in the first chapter where she's muttering and she's talking about how she has to be really careful about what she says, because one, people are always listening, and two, even more important, is she doesn't want Prim to ever accidentally just repeat something she says.
Yes.
And she says something like District 12 where it's safer to starve than be out on your own, or something like that.
I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
It's so good, though. It's so good. I wish I could find. I should have underlined.
It's right at the beginning.
District 12, where you can starve to death in safety, and it has been underlined 21,000 times.
Damn. All right, shit.
I'm gonna make it 21,001 because I'm about to underline that shit.
So this is when Effie Trinket pops up.
This is from the movie, with the crazy hair and makeup and the bright colored suits. That's like the MC, right?
The woman that you thought was a queen when you were talking about it.
That's who I thought it was, right?
Yep.
It turns out she's just like somebody trying to move
She's
up
just
in
a
the
fucking
world.
game show host. She's like Maria Menounos.
Oh my God. Not like a lesser Maria Menounos. She's like a fucking Tia Tequila or whatever the fuck
Oh
her
God,
name
I forgot
was.
about her.
Like just trying to move up in the world to a real network.
Yeah, and that's like definitely the energy because she like being stuck with being the host for District 12.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad gig.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
they've
13.
only ever had 2 victors, and one of them is dead. It happened so long ago.
It hasn't been made explicitly clear, but my assumption is that these are numbered districts and the numbers mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And they are from 12, and there's only 13 districts. And actually, 13 got obliterated.
Correct.
So they are the last district. So that tells me that they are like the lowest of the low. I'm just going to assume that it works that way. So this woman is trying to move up. District 9, District 8, give me something.
And that is who I made the lips for the logo for this show.
Oh, fun.
Her outfit in this scene in the first movie is the makeup that Sid drew her wearing, like that pink and gold. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping now. But yeah, she is from the Capitol, and she's wearing a wig, which keeps getting blown askew.
She needs a Beyonce wig because that shit wasn't going nowhere. That wind was blowing, them fans was going, that wig was not going nowhere.
I kept wondering, like, is it or is it just extensions? I can never tell.
There's a whole thing happening. I'm pretty sure it's a wig because the guy who does her hair has an Instagram account, and there's a lot of talk about how that wig is the best wig anybody's ever seen.
I swear, can you imagine doing her hair? Ugh, the pressure. Ugh, just get anxiety just thinking about it. That is just too much for me. No, thank you. So she goes in ladies first, and she pulls out Primrose's name.
Oh my God. I knew this was happening because I knew that like our main character Katniss has to like volunteer. I don't know if I knew it was because her sister got called, but I
think you guessed it.
I think so, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that this was the thing, and yet my heart was like,
yeah,
not Primrose. She's just a baby.
She's a baby. And she's so completely like the wind has been knocked out of her that it takes a second before she even volunteers as tribute because it hasn't like fully registered. Yes. And then she sees Prim walking up. It says somewhere far away. I can hear. I should mention too, this is all in present tense. How do you feel about that?
I like it. It really just like brings you right into it. Like
I agree.
Like I'm like in it. Like it's happening in real time. I like it.
There were a lot of people who had an issue with it, and present tense is a real iffy thing. Like I've had it sometimes where I don't feel like it really works, but I feel like for this story it works really well. I can hear the crowd murmuring unhappily, as they always do when a 12-year-old gets chosen, because no one thinks this is fair. And when I see her, the blood drained from her face, hands clenched in fists at her sides, walking with stiff, small steps, passing me, and I see the back of her blouse has become untucked and hangs out over her skirt. It's this detail, the untucked blouse forming a ducktail, that brings me back to myself.
I love that.
And she volunteers.
You guys, this thing that happens is wow. So like Katniss volunteers as tribute to save her sister, right? Mm-hmm. It gets to like a little bit of chaos on the stage. People don't actually know what's going on. It's like, it's been so long since someone has actually done this that the sort of like protocol has been lost, right?
Yes.
But then once it's established that what's happening, they expect like the crowd to like burst into applause.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen.
Not even a little.
And I was reading it and I was just like, wait, what is this? And it turns out that the crowd of people of District 12 understand the significance of what they have just seen. And to applaud would almost be like co-signing, like they think this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they all in unison are like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And so it's just like silence. And that is so fucking gangster. I love it so much. And then like Effie and whoever else is on stage they're like so awkward. They don't know what to like do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like flash forward to the third chapter when Katniss is watching all this on like TV being replayed. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So they end up playing it off on the broadcast as just like, oh, these country bumpkins and their weird ass traditions. What can you do?
Mm-hmm,
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And again, too real, because isn't that what they do?
Yeah.
To like dismiss us,
yep.
you know, and minimize us and belittle us. Ugh, this is all very, very good.
So they do this thing where they put 3 fingers to their lips and then raise them. It's an old and rarely used gesture of our district, occasionally seen at funerals. It means thanks. It means admiration. It means goodbye to someone you love. That line never fails to get me choked up every time.
So good. That's so good. 38,000 times highlighted.
I swear, every time, like I don't know, even just reading it right there, I was like in danger. And I almost, Candace, when I was like thinking about how to do the logo for the show, Candace suggested, instead of having the whisper lips, doing it as the 3 fingers, like the salute. Mm-hmm. And I considered it because it's such an iconic thing.
Yeah.
But I decided that the Hunger Games, like, and a lot of things related to the Hunger Games are depicted with really bland, dull colors. And the bright color thing is like, you know, a garish. I understand why, but I kind of wanted to do something that would stand out a little bit more. So I decided to go with the Effie trinket thing instead. But I just wanted to mention that it had been on the table and I really liked the idea. It was like a difficult decision to go with the Effie look, but it's so very, very distinctive. And the logo, the finger is low enough that I was like, will 3 look really weird? Like it's all contained in such a small space on that little square. So
that's the other thing, is the amount of space you're working with when you do those things.
So then we have fucking Haymitch, who is drunk, yelling at the screen, but he can't like remember the words he wants to say. I like her. He can't think of the word for a while. Spunk! More than you, he shouts, pointing directly into a camera. Is he addressing the audience? Or is he so drunk he might actually be taunting the Capitol? I'll never know, because just as he's opening his mouth to continue, Haymitch plummets off the stage and knocks himself unconscious.
This is even worse than the Woody Harrelson shit that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
This is way worse than that. I think at least Woody manages on stage and just gets really drunk on the train and shows himself to be like, ugh. But this guy can't even be on the stage. There's like 3 chairs, and it's Effie and a mayor and an empty chair.
Yep. Yep. So, and Katniss is grateful because this is a hullabaloo that takes attention off of her for a minute, because she is already strategizing about her image and does not want to be seen crying because she thinks this is going to make her look weak. Yeah,
she decides very early on that she does not want to be caught by the cameras. And I want to mention too, I really appreciate how invasive it is, this mention of the cameras throughout all this, especially later on, that all this is being televised, all of this is entertainment.
Yep.
So she has to be mindful. And there's a bit when she's watching and she's like impressed because her face looks almost bored. And she's just like, thank God I pulled that off.
Yeah.
But the idea that all this is happening, because when you're reading it, you know, especially because it's written in present tense, when you're reading it, you're just really like in her head about everything that's happening. So to be reminded that while we may be in her head, there's a million other people that are watching this.
Yeah.
Just like, you know,
meeting her for the first time, so to speak.
You know, and it's just like fucking primetime TV for them. That's all this is.
It's Bravo.
You know, Oh my God, it's fucking Bravo. Oh my God.
It's
right,
Murder
though.
Bravo.
You are right, though. I mean, like, it is sort of a commentary on our sort of obsessive reality television shit that we're into, right?
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Mm.
So then it's time to pull the name for the boy, and it's Peter Malark. And Katniss is like, oh, God,
Not
not
this guy.
This guy.
I was so surprised how this turned out. I couldn't figure out why she would care why it was this guy. And when she tells us that there's like an incident, my brain went to like the worst possible scenario because that's the world I live in.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was going to tell me something really fucked up that had happened between them. And what turns out what happened between them was so unexpected.
Even more fucked up.
And even more fucked up somehow. Like it was nothing. It was nowhere close to the shit that my brain automatically went to. And it still somehow was terrible.
Yeah. So what happened was she was on the verge of really starving to death.
Yeah, this is right after her father's died. She's not even hunting yet.
Yeah. She is scrounging for food and goes to the merchant district to look in the dumpsters.
Yeah.
And she's figuring other people are probably not as desperate as us. So there might be something left that nobody else would be willing to eat except for us.
And that is not the case.
We get this little, you guys, starvation's not an uncommon fate in District 12. Who hasn't seen the victims? Older people who can't work. Children from a family with too many to feed. Those injured in the mines, straggling through the streets. And one day, you come upon them sitting motionless against a wall or lying in the meadow. You hear the wails from a house, and the peacekeepers are called in to retrieve the body. Starvation is never the cause of death officially. It's always the flu or exposure or pneumonia. But that fools no one.
That really got me.
Yeah.
That really, really got me. The idea that the state will lie about why its people are dying to save face. And I feel like, you know, I'm can't think of any like examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure if there were more time, we could all think of some, because this also feels really on brand.
I mean, there was a period where with the pandemic, there were a lot of accusations about whether they were actually listing COVID as cause of death. Yeah, because with it being complications, you could say, "Oh, well, you know, it was the breathing issue." Yeah, from COVID.
Like, yeah, there were all those people complaining that, you know, you're saying it was COVID that did it, but it really wasn't.
So she goes to the dumpster. They're completely emptied. She got there too late. And she's standing there genuinely like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she smells the bakery and is absolutely overwhelmed with the smell. And she goes over, looks in the garbage, empty, and unfortunately draws the attention of the baker's wife, who is a heartless harpy.
This woman sounds terrible.
She sounds like she
And we meet the husband later, and you're just like, dude, what the fuck?
Right? And she shoos Katniss off. But as Katniss is just standing outside, not really sure where to go and thinking, like, maybe I should just die here in the rain. Like, she hears this woman yell again, and the sound of her hitting somebody. And then this boy comes out, and he's got these burnt loaves of bread that she's telling him to feed to the pigs. And he feeds most of the loaf, like he's got a few loaves, most of one of them to the pigs. And then he just drops two mostly perfectly fine loaves on the ground. And he goes inside, and he has never looked at her at all.
And his face is all fucked up.
Yeah. She sees him the next day at school, and he's got a black eye, and So she goes home, and I really enjoy this. One When I dropped the loaves on the table, Prim's hands reached to tear off a chunk, but I made her sit, forced my mother to join us at the table, and poured warm tea. I scraped off the black stuff and sliced the bread. We ate an entire loaf, slice by slice. It was good, hearty bread, filled with raisins and nuts. And she says that it didn't even occur to her until the next day that he maybe burned the bread on purpose so that he could give it to her. Yeah. It didn't even enter her mind.
And then she sort of like poo-poos it right away. She's like, nah, that couldn't have been it. It had to have been an accident, because why would he do it? He doesn't know me. And like with the night that he does it, when he comes out to feed the pigs, Katniss can already see that he's been smacked in the face. Like his face is already starting to whelp up and shit.
Yeah.
So she sees him the next day in school, and it's like he's got a black eye and it's all fucked up. And she's just like why would he do that for me? Especially when it caused him to get like smacked in his face. Like this, none of this makes any sense, and she can't explain it. And we find out that they never really have a conversation about this.
No.
She never gets to really thank him or ask him or anything. It's just this weird, really intimate moment they share with no words. And it's just a thing that happens. And she feels this connection between this boy that she doesn't know, because one of the other things she says is, like you said a moment ago, right before he comes out with the bread for the pigs, she is about to give up. She is slouching against this wall. She has no energy left. She doesn't think she can get herself home. She's about to just fucking call it a day.
Yeah. Like,
why even keep living? This life is nothing. And he like saves her life and gives her enough hope that she can recommit to trying to figure out how to live in this world where her father is anymore. And it is this moment with this bread that fortifies her enough to learn to hunt and to start going out and taking care of her family. This is huge.
Yeah.
And they never have a real conversation about it. And now he is one of the people that she has to, I'm assuming, kill. I don't exactly know all the rules of the Hunger Games yet. But in order for her to win, I think you have to kill everybody else.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So, yeah, she doesn't want to have to kill him.
I really enjoy that line. How do you work in a thank you? Somehow it just won't seem sincere if I'm trying to slit his throat.
Right.
That makes me chuckle. So then we go to chapter 3. The moment the anthem ends, we're taken into custody. I don't mean we're handcuffed or anything, but a group of peacekeepers marches us through the front door of the Justice Building. Maybe tributes have tried to escape in the past. I've never seen that happen, though. Once inside, I'm conducted to a room and left alone. It's the richest place I've ever been in, with thick, deep carpets and a velvet couch and chairs. I know velvet because my mother has a dress with a collar made of the stuff. I really like that detail. Just like, that's the only contact she's ever had with something like this is the tiny amount of fabric that you would have for the collar of a dress. Yeah.
I feel like this would be me if somebody had something super, super fancy. Like, so fancy, I can't even give you an example.
So her mom and sister are allowed to come in and say goodbye. And she is really trying not to cry. She gives them very strict instructions of how they're going to get by. Prim can absolutely not take any tesserae. That they are going to have to survive on what they can sell of her goat's milk and her mother's job.
And she takes her mother to task too.
She does indeed.
That shit you pulled last time, you don't get to pull it again because I'm not going to be here to pick up the pieces. So you fucking better act right and be a mom. None of this disappearing into your own stuff. And her mom gets like kind of defensive.
Yes.
Well, I was sick, and it wasn't really my fault. But I came out of it. And Katniss is like, has to say to us as like readers, like, you know what? Yeah, my mom did come out of it. And I've seen my mom make medicine to get other people out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lending some sort of legitimacy to her mom's ability to be a mom and like be present.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting, because this idea of basically it's like the mom went into a deep, understandable depression at the loss of her husband and father of her children, and was able to come out of it by medication,
Mm-hmm.
and then helps other people. You know,
Yes.
I really like that bit. I like that detail a lot, that you can come out of that sort of thing and still be useful, but your kid who suffered from you going through it is going to still feel away.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Like, she's definitely takes a moment, because when she says, I couldn't help, what will you have to help at this time?
Mm-hmm.
You can't clock out and leave Prim on her own. There's no me now to keep you both alive. I was ill. I could have treated myself if I'd had the medicine I have now. That part about her being ill might be true. I've seen her bring back people suffering from immobilizing sadness since. Perhaps it is a sickness, but it's one we can't afford.
Listen. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
You guys. Mm-mm-mm. And Katniss says to her, all right, well then take it, your medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and take care of her. She's telling her mom again, make sure you take care of Prim.
Yes.
And then Prim is just like, I'll be fine. I'll be okay.
And Prim tells her, you're going to actually try to win, right? Because you could, and you could come home. And privately, Katniss is just like, I am not going to win. Come on. But she's also thinking, I can't tell my mom to to really be there, and then half-ass this myself.
Yep.
So she promises to really try, and is very aware that it's only promising this to Prim that's probably going to carry her through a lot of this.
And I love that we have, as soon as she does this promise to Prim, we get Kat thinking to herself, shit, they're going to be like a lot of kids. Some of them are going to be 2 and 3 times my size. They're going to be girls that know 20 different ways to kill people. They're going to be people who have been training for this, literally training for this. And then she says, and there are going to be a couple of people like me too, you know, who are just getting dumped into this shit, who are going to be weeded out before the real fun begins, is how she says it.
Mm-hmm. So she then gets a surprise visit from Peeta Mellark's father, who doesn't seem to know what to say to her.
I was shocked by this.
And he gives her cookies.
Yeah.
And
she tells us that, you know, she goes and she sells goat cheese to him, and always gives like a little extra. And they like to trade with him when his wife, who we've met, is not around because she's terrible.
Yep.
And Kat thinks to herself, I'm certain he would have never hit his son the way his wife did over that burned bread. But she's just like, but why is he here, though?
And eventually he says, I'll keep an eye on the little girl and make sure she's eating. And she feels like this weight slide off her.
She tells him too, because when at the beginning of the book, when she meets Gale in the woods, he's got bread that he says he caught on an arrow. And so she tells the baker, she's like, yeah, my friend gave you a squirrel for some bread this morning. That wasn't a best deal.
Yeah. Not your best trade. So he takes off, and then Madge comes in.
Shocked. I was shocked by this. It was a pleasant shock, but shocked all the same.
Yeah. And she's also shocked and is like, wow, I guess we have become friends, sort of, somehow. But Madge gives her a Mockingjay pin.
Yeah.
Because it's like a representation of their district, and it's a bird that her father had a real fondness for. Yeah. And we find out about the deal with Mockingjays.
Now, I wasn't clear on whether Madge gets the connection for the Mockingjay for Katniss, or if it's just a much more general, this is a symbol of our district. I don't really know how much Madge would know about Katniss's father. And
I don't know either.
bit.
I think it's just a general thing, a gesture.
And I like too that when they show up at the mayor's house and they see Madge earlier when she's with Gale, and Madge is wearing this pin, and it's mentioned then.
Yes.
Also that it's like a gold pin, which I feel like is like very fancy pants considering their situation. So part of me was like, oh, is she going to give her this pin because it's worth a lot of money and it can help her later? But then it turns out that the pin is symbolic for other reasons.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, based on the way things seem to go once they get on the train, Katniss is not really going to need money to get by in the capital.
Yeah, it turns out that like this train compartment that she's in is like all decked out with like everything she could possibly need, new clothes, like a nice shower that she's never really had, and so yeah. But my first thought was like, is this like folding money in somebody's dress?
So yeah, the deal with the Mockingjays is
so fun,
really fascinating. They're funny birds and something of a slap in the face to the capital. During the rebellion, the capital bred a series of genetically altered animals as weapons. The common term for them was mutations, or sometimes mutts for short. One was a special bird called a jabberjay that had the ability to memorize and repeat whole human conversations. They were homing birds, exclusively male, that were released into regions where the capital's enemies were known to be hiding. After the birds gathered words, they'd fly back to centers to be recorded. It took people a while to realize what was going on in the districts, how private conversations were being transmitted. Then, of course, the rebels fed the capital endless lies, and the joke was on it. So the centers were shut down, and the birds were abandoned to die off in the wild. Only they didn't die off. Instead, the jabberjays mated with female mockingbirds, creating a whole new species that could replicate both bird whistles and human melodies. They had lost the ability to enunciate words, but could still mimic a range of human vocal sounds, from a child's high-pitched warble to a man's deep tones. And they could recreate songs, not just a few notes, but whole songs with multiple verses if you had the patience to sing them and if they liked your voice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Her dad loved to train them to sing certain things when they were out hunting together. So it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. Also, I don't know if jabberjay is a real thing, but I want to say that now all the time.
I know. So, it's got a ring to it, doesn't it?
You guys just be on the lookout for that.
He's a real jabberjay, that one.
And I also like when Madge comes to see her, there's a moment where Katniss is like, she comes in, she's not weepy, there's not like a weirdness, she comes in with urgency, she knows exactly what she's here for. I'm here to give you this thing. And I don't know, there's something about Madge I really like, and I can't imagine that I'll see her more because I feel like they're on this train now and they're moving towards the capital, and the story is going to go wherever it goes, and these people are going to be left behind in District 12.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'll see them anymore. But I do like Madge a lot.
I think that's a really, like, something that is really well done here, where you have only been in this place like 2 chapters, and you've already grown to like a character enough that you're like, oh, it's too bad we don't get to see them probably. Like, that's a difficult thing to pull off in such a short time, making us like give a shit about some side character.
Agreed.
So this is when Gale comes in, and he's like talking tactics with her and saying, if there's a bow, you've got to get that. That's the best thing for you. Like, that's your particular strength. And you can make one if they don't have one. They talk about, a place, one of the ones where there was no wood. There's almost always some wood now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Katniss, it's just hunting. You're the best hunter I know. It's not just hunting. They're armed. They think. So do you. And you've had more practice. Real practice. You know how to kill. Not people. How different can it be, really?
Oof.
Right?
That's a heavy, heavy statement. How different can it really be? And then It says, the awful thing is that if I can forget their people, it will be no different at all. Yeah. Also, they keep this peacekeepers. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Them just the cops.
The cops.
Call them what you want. I don't like it.
Definitely.
And they are the ones that keep like telling people it's time to go and then bringing in new people. And there's only like a certain amount of time each of these people can spend with her. So they have to come back and tell Gail that he has to go. And we've seen this happen with Prim and her mom, and then with Madge, and then with the baker. But with Gail, there's actually acknowledgement of like, no, we need more time. And Gail asks for more time. And they're like, no, you can't. And Kat starts to panic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts to yell after Gail, don't let them starve. And he says, I won't. You know, I won't. Remember, I. And then he's gone. And she doesn't get to hear the rest of what that sentence is.
Yeah.
Remember, I. Yeah.
Yep. So then she is in the station. Tons of cameras all over the place.
Yeah.
PETA has obviously been crying. And interestingly enough, does not seem to be trying to cover it up.
No, he's got a whole other strategy happening.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes her think that maybe he's doing this thing where he's trying to make it seem like he's not as much of a threat because he's so emotional and he's crying.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds her that there was another girl from an earlier game who pulled this type of gambit and it worked really well for her. That she, I think her name is Johanna. And it says she seemed like such a sniveling, cowardly fool that no one bothered about her until there were only a handful of contestants left. And it turned out she could kill viciously. She was pretty clever the way she handled it. But it doesn't seem like a good idea for PETA because Kat is like, look at him.
Yeah.
This motherfucker is swole. He is well fed and works out. And like no one is falling for this.
Yep. Swole. I haven't heard that in a while. So we have to stand for a few minutes in the doorway of the train while the cameras gobble up our images. Then we're allowed inside and the doors close mercifully behind us. The train begins to move at once. The speed initially takes my breath away. Of course, I've never been on a train, as travel between the districts is forbidden except for officially sanctioned duties. For us, that's mainly transporting coal. But this is no ordinary coal train. It's one of the high-speed capital models that average 250 miles per hour. Our journey to the capital will take less than a day.
Bitch, I ain't never been on no 250 mile an hour train. We don't have
Same.
those here. This part I love too because this is reminding us again about where this is taking place. So we find out that where District 12 is what we call Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
And they are heading towards the capital, which is somewhere in the Rockies.
Yes.
I love that grounding, that bringing us back, you know.
I'm going to pull up, there's a map of Pan Am that I do not think has spoilers. So it's not really that important, you know, like in the grand scheme, but it's interesting to look at and just keep in mind. So I'm going to find this.
Is it in your Kindle?
No. I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking on Google. Yeah. Okay. Got it. And yeah, this is totally spoiler free.
Oh, okay.
So, and it includes District 13, the one that was like destroyed, which is basically like northern New England.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. District 2 is the biggest one.
Wasn't there a TV show called District 13?
I think so. That's ringing a bell.
I feel like for a second I thought that I got spoiled. I thought I was remembering a spoiler for this book, but it's not. I'm remembering a sci-fi show called District 13.
I just texted it to you.
Ooh, where's my phone?
So let's see. The tribute train is fancier than even the room in the Justice Building. We're each given our own chambers that have a bedroom, a dressing area, and a private bathroom with hot and cold running water. We don't have hot water at home unless we boil it. There are drawers filled with fine clothes, And Effie Trinket tells me to do anything I want, wear anything I want. Everything is at my disposal. Just be ready for supper in an hour. So she showers, first time she's ever had a shower, and gets dressed. And this is when we get the Mockingjay explanation. And she goes in to eat, and Haymitch is not there. PETA says that he had said he was going to take a nap. And Effie is like, well, it's been an exhausting day. And she's like, yeah, I think she's real glad that he isn't here, actually. Because he tried to hug her on camera and got all fucking caught up because he was confused about
knocked the wig off to the side.
Oh my God.
I'm
what a
looking
mess.
at this map you sent me, and I just want to mention that, Florida is not even,
yeah.
Right. Florida barely made it. There's, it's called the Florida Islands at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure it. My fucking geography is so bad. So I was assuming
you have to come closer to your mic.
I was assuming the capital would be District 1, but that seems way too far west to be the Rockies. So I don't know where.
The capital is that darkened section in District 2. Right. You see that square in the big red?
Oh, there it is. Got
it.
Okay. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is far. Huh.
So, yeah. And District 11 is the biggest, I think. And I won't tell you any furher about the districts. Okay. You'll find out about all that stuff eventually.
I'm trying to see, if I would be, again.
You got to come back to you keep
doing this. Sorry, I'm looking at I'm scrolling in at the map. So I guess where I am in Pennsylvania, I would be District 13 or North District 12. Can't tell where Pennsylvania would be on this.
I think I'm trying to see. Would it not be District 4? Or, District 6? It's hard because it looks like the Great Lakes have expanded, but they're not. It's just that the edges of the country have shrunk.
Are underwater now. That's what's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe District 12.
Yeah, I think District 12. But that's wild, though. That map is crazy.
Right?
All right. But
California's mostly gone, too.
Oh, my God. This is I don't know how far-fetched this is.
God, most of Texas looks like it's gone.
Right?
A lot of it.
At first you're just ha, ha, ha. Fiction. Is it? Right?
That's exactly how I always am. Ha, 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 fiction. Took the words right out of my mouth.
I'm just saying, you don't want to look too closely at that or for too long. That's all I'm saying. All right.
So they're eating and they get to see the other. Well, first there's this comment from Effie.
Girl.
At least you two have decent manners. The pair last year ate everything with their hands like a couple of savages. It completely upset my digestion. The pair last year were two kids from the seam who'd never, not one day of their lives, had enough to eat. And when they did have food, table manners were surely the last thing on their mind. PETA's a baker's son. My mother taught Prim and me to eat properly. So yes, I can handle a fork and knife. But I hate Effie Trinket's comments so much, I make a point of eating the rest of the meal with my fingers. Then I wipe my hands on the tablecloth. This makes her purse her lips tightly together.
And then I fell in love. I was already really close to falling in love, but then I fell in love completely in this moment. Yes to all of this. Fuck Effie, eat with your hands, fuck that tablecloth up. Yes. Yeah. And even as they were eating, I was like, oh, you guys are going to get sick.
Yeah, not being used to this rich food. Right? They've got chocolate cake and shit. Yeah.
And so they eat and they get sick, and then Katniss is like, but you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to throw up because fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love her.
So we go to another compartment to watch the recap of the reapings. A monstrous boy who lunges forward to volunteer from District 2. A fox-faced girl with sleek red hair from District 5. A boy with a crippled foot from District 10. And most hauntingly, a 12-year-old girl from District 11. She has dark brown skin and eyes, but other than that, she's very like Prim in size and demeanor. Only when she mounts the stage and they ask for volunteers, all you can hear is the wind whistling through the decrepit buildings around her. There's no one willing to take her place.
This is so sad. I don't know. And you know what? I don't know exactly why it's so sad, because this has got to be a thing that happens all the time, because, you know, no one's going to sacrifice their child for someone else's child, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So if this little girl has the misfortune of being, say, an only child, who else is going to stand up for her?
Mm-hmm.
But her age and everyone is just like, this is wrong. We all know it's wrong.
Yeah.
But there's nothing they can do about it. They are powerless. They just have to stand there and watch the wrongness of it all.
And even if she had a brother or sister, like, there is a good chance that more of her family relies on somebody older. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like Katniss is in a situation where her family relied on her, but there's only the two of them.
Right.
And it is possible for them to get by without her.
Right.
But, you know, Gale, he goes with his 5 brothers and sisters. That's a whole family of people. Like, so there's just a lot of mitigating circumstances, like, no matter what the situation.
Yeah. And also to be, you know, I don't know if it's important to mention, but I feel like it kind of is. It's not the parent who makes the decision with Katniss and Prim.
Correct.
Kat just does it.
Yes.
Like, it's not like her mom made an executive decision. Oh, you go and save her, you know? So I just, like, if you are from a family where the parents are actively the parents, then the children would defer to them. And the parent gets to make the decision that, well, you know, maybe we can't afford to lose an older kid who is contributing to the family's well-being. But Katniss's family, that's not the dynamic.
Yeah.
Katniss is kind of the grown-up in her own family. So she gets to make this call. I don't know. There's just something about it that is just so, like, demoralizing that this little girl gets called up and there is no one to volunteer as tribute on her behalf, because that's not a thing that just happens willy-nilly for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
So they then see their own reaping, and Effie is very irritated about her wig being askew. And it's just like, he really has a lot to learn about how to conduct himself on television. And both of them are like, he was fucking drunk, because she's acting like he just needs some decorum lessons or something. And it's like, nah, the man was inebriated. Ma'am.
Like, is this denial, or is this just like a defect of Effie's?
I feel like it's denial. I feel like it's like, you know, in polite society, we don't address that somebody was drunk. We just pretend that, oh, he's not feeling well.
Okay.
Like waspy. You know what I mean?
That checks out. Yeah. Because they do take great enjoyment in telling her he was drunk. And Effie does not enjoy it.
So when they say, like, he's drunk every day, every year, and they start laughing.
This stops being funny super fast.
Right?
Because, you guys, it turns out this motherfucker is important. This guy is the guy. He's their guide. He's their Sherpa. He's their person that they're supposed to be leaning on for strategy, for tips, for how to succeed. How did you win? How did you do it? And this is it.
Yeah.
This guy who falls into a pile of his own vomit, this is their guy? It's no good. This is no good. No good for anybody.
Yeah, not really what you're hoping for in a mentor.
And Effie, as much as I have enjoyed her sort of like being put out throughout these first 2 chapters, she ends this chapter with like a smugness that I did not enjoy, because she gets to be like, oh, you think it's really fucking funny? Well, I hope you think it's funny that your lifeline in this whole fucking shit, the one who advises you, this is him. So fucking giggle it up. I did not enjoy any of this.
Giggle it up.
I don't think that's a direct quote, but I feel like it stands.
She just says laugh away, but I like giggle it up. I prefer that.
And he does throw up again. Like, this is like the second or third time that we've seen him. He's thrown up every time. Throws up all over everything and then falls into it. And she's just like, all right, so chuckle it up, fucks. And leaves the room.
So that is the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
It's the end of this first section.
I really, really enjoyed these first 2 chapters, you guys. I really did.
I'm so excited.
You know, I was ambivalent. You know, my experience of what I had picked up from the movies, I was less than thrilled about what they seemed to be about. But it's whatever. People loved them. Have fun with all that. But these first 2 chapters were really good. And I can't believe how bad the movie was. Because this is literally where I checked out. Was them on the train with Woody Harrelson. And I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this.
Look, again, no shade, like you said, to people who like the movie. People like different things. I definitely have very different tastes than a lot of, you know, like fandom people. And I think that can be part of it, is like just having a sort of softness from the original material can work 2 ways. It can make you much more forgiving or much less forgiving. Yeah. And I wind up on the less forgiving.
So you had read these before you saw the movies?
Yes.
Okay.
And I saw the first one and was just so bored. I couldn't believe how bored I was.
It was so boring.
Yeah, I really was not like there were so many moments, and the casting was excellent. There are so many things out there that are like this. They cast with these names and you're like psyched because the casting sounds fucking unbelievable. And then they just don't do anything with it, you know?
I can't get over that I could not make it past the train in the movie. And we are 3 chapters in, and if I left to my own devices, I would be finished this book by tomorrow afternoon. It's just wild to me how different it can be. And again, no shade to people who like the movies. It's just really, really amazing to me how different it can be. And just like a subtle shift in tone changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the struggle of the districts is kind of sidelined in favor of getting to the capital right away and dealing with the games themselves right away, which I understand the impulse to do that, but it feels like it's missing the point of everything and kind of doing the thing the games are doing, which is leaning into the spectacle of it instead of like the horror of it in a way that felt like high impact. Right. And also, you know, this is so much in her head. So much of the information we're getting is a private series of thoughts, and they can't do that on screen easily.
That's definitely going to have a huge impact on how the movie comes across, right?
Yeah.
And we saw that in, you know, another property that we don't need to get into right now, but yeah. You know, so but I'm really excited to get into this. This was really enjoyable. I like the characters so far, even the ones that I don't know. I'm invested in. I'm excited.
Yay!
I'm excited. I hope my book comes.
I can't wait. Yeah, we'll see what they said they were going to try. Anyway, they didn't. Long story short, guys, I ordered her the whole trilogy. It was supposed to arrive next day. They claimed they tried to deliver it. I don't believe it for a second. They completely lied because the tracking says it's in Delaware. And then they were like, well, we'll retry delivery later today. And I'm like, how though? Because it's in Delaware. Well, it's the next day. Shit still says Delaware. And apparently did not retry yesterday, nor did they try today.
They did not.
So yeah, I'm going to have to replace that order and just, you know,
raise a little ruckus.
I just don't lie. If you can't get it to her the very next day, that's very reasonable. I have been spoiled by next day delivery from Amazon. But if you're like, hey, sorry, we're not going to be fine. I recognize that it's an unreasonable standard. I'm okay.
Did they set though?
Yes, they said it. So just tell me. But you're out here just being like, no, I'm like 20 minutes away when you're still laying in bed with your bedhead.
Why are you acting like a dude I'm trying to date?
This is what I'm saying.
I just want a book delivered. We don't have to play these games.
Does not have to be all of this lying.
You ain't got to lie, Chris. You ain't got to lie. All right,
folks. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Hope you're enjoying the coverage. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man. They say he running free. Strange things can happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.